In this episode, we are going to explore why major organizational changes like mergers, acquisitions, outsourcing, and reorganizations often create security risk even when nobody intends to. Beginners sometimes imagine that security problems come mainly from attackers or technical weaknesses, but organizational change can be just as disruptive because it reshapes people's access, reshapes data flows, and reshapes ownership of systems and decisions. A merger or acquisition can bring in new systems, new vendors, and new cultures, often under time pressure to integrate and show business value quickly. Outsourcing can move critical work to an external provider, changing accountability boundaries and creating new dependencies that must be governed. Reorganizations can change reporting lines, responsibilities, and decision authority, which can break established security processes and create confusion about who owns what. The security impact is often invisible at first because leaders focus on the business objectives of the change, such as growth, efficiency, or modernization. Security management is about making sure the change does not quietly expand risk beyond what the organization can accept. Managing security impact is therefore not about blocking change. It is about guiding change so the organization keeps control of its information, its operations, and its trust while everything is moving. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyber.author.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. A strong way to begin is to understand the core reason these events create security risk. They increase complexity and uncertainty at the same time. Complexity increases because you now have more systems, more identities, more processes, more data stores, and more relationships to manage. Uncertainty increases because people may not know what exists, what is critical, what is compliant, and who is responsible for decisions. In that environment, shortcuts are common, documentation is outdated, and teams are focused on urgent integration tasks rather than careful risk management. Attackers often take advantage of this because confusion creates opportunity, such as temporary access exceptions that never get removed or poorly governed connections between networks. Even without attackers, internal mistakes become more likely because people are learning new processes and working with unfamiliar systems. Beginners sometimes assume security can be handled after the integration is complete, but delay is dangerous because early integration decisions can create long-term risk paths, such as shared identity systems, shared data repositories, or shared administrative access. Security management treats change as a risk event that requires planning and oversight, not as a pure business event with security added later. When security is involved early, it can identify critical issues before they become expensive to unwind. Mergers and acquisitions create a unique security challenge because they combine environments with different maturity, different policies, and different cultures. One organization may have strong governance and consistent baselines, while the other may have informal practices and limited documentation. If you assume the combined organization can instantly adopt one set of controls, you may create conflict and operational disruption. If you assume nothing needs to change and the environments can remain separate indefinitely, you may create long-term fragmentation and blind spots. Managing security impact means assessing each organization's posture and identifying what must be addressed immediately versus what can be faced. Immediate issues often include critical vulnerabilities, unmanaged privileged access, unknown data exposure, and weak incident response coordination. Phased issues often include standardizing policies, harmonizing baselines, and integrating monitoring. Beginners sometimes focus on the visible systems, but the bigger risk can be identity and access, because identity connects everything. When two organizations merge, access rights can expand rapidly as teams need collaboration, and that expansion can lead to excessive privileges if not controlled. A mature approach treats identity integration as a high-risk activity that must be governed carefully. Outsourcing creates security impact by changing the boundary between what the organization controls directly and what it relies on a provider to do. This boundary shift affects confidentiality, integrity, and availability because the provider may access systems, handle data, or perform changes that affect operations. Beginners sometimes assume outsourcing transfers responsibility, but in many cases the organization retains accountability for outcomes, especially for compliance obligations and customer trust. Managing security impact, therefore, involves defining shared responsibilities clearly, ensuring contracts include enforceable security commitments, and establishing oversight processes. It also involves ensuring the provider's staff access is controlled, monitored, and reviewed, because provider access is a common risk path. Outsourcing can also affect incident response because providers may detect issues first or may control certain logs and systems. If incident coordination is not planned in advance, response becomes slow and confused. Security management seeks to make outsourcing a controlled relationship with clear decision rights, clear reporting, and clear evidence expectations. When outsourcing is governed well, it can improve security by bringing specialized capability, but when it is governed poorly, it can create hidden dependencies and reduced visibility. Reorganizations can create security impact even without external change, because they alter roles, reporting lines, and decision authority. When teams move, managers change, and responsibilities shift, access privileges often remain from the old structure, creating excessive access and conflicts of interest. Processes may also break because the people who used to approve requests or own a process are no longer in those roles. Beginners often underestimate how quickly a reorg can create access chaos, because access systems usually do not automatically update based on organizational charts. Managing security impact includes reviewing access based on new roles, ensuring approvals and ownership are updated, and clarifying how governance functions operate in the new structure. Reorgs also affect security culture because teams may be stressed and uncertain, making them more likely to skip processes or ignore training. A mature security program anticipates this by increasing clarity and communication during reorg periods, rather than assuming everything will settle on its own. Clarity during change is a security control because it reduces guesswork. Guesswork leads to inconsistent decisions, and inconsistent decisions create risk. A practical approach to managing these changes is to treat them as life cycle events with predictable security checkpoints. Early in a merger or acquisition, you need discovery, meaning understanding what systems exist, what data exists, what obligations exist, and what major risks exist. Discovery is often incomplete at first, which is why you prioritize the most critical areas, such as systems that handle sensitive data or provide critical services. During integration, you need boundary control, meaning careful management of connections, access, and data sharing so integration does not create uncontrolled paths. During stabilization, you need harmonization, meaning aligning policies, standards, baselines, and monitoring so the combined environment becomes governable. Beginners sometimes assume discovery must be perfect before integration begins, but that is rarely possible. The key is to manage uncertainty by focusing on critical assets first and by limiting risky integration shortcuts. For outsourcing, the checkpoints include defining requirements, validating provider capabilities, onboarding with controlled access, and ongoing oversight. For reorgs, the checkpoints include updating ownership, reviewing access, and ensuring processes still have clear approvers. Checkpoints provide a disciplined way to manage change without stopping it. Data is another central element because change events often involve moving, combining, or reclassifying data. During mergers, data may need to be shared between organizations, which can introduce exposure if classification rules differ. During acquisitions, data may be inherited that carries obligations the acquiring organization did not anticipate. During outsourcing, data may be processed or stored by a provider, changing where it resides and who can access it. During reorgs, data ownership may shift, creating confusion about who approves sharing and retention decisions. Managing security impact means applying consistent data classification and handling expectations, even when systems and cultures differ. It also means controlling data movement, because data movement is a moment of high risk, especially when temporary transfer methods are used. Beginners sometimes focus only on the destination, but the transfer itself can create exposure if it is not controlled. A mature security program sets clear rules for data sharing and ensures that data owners are involved in decisions. When data handling is governed during change, the organization reduces the risk of accidental disclosure and compliance violations. Incident response readiness should also be addressed early because change events can increase incident likelihood while also reducing response effectiveness. When teams are integrating systems, they may create configuration mistakes that cause outages or exposure. When providers are involved, coordination may be slower. When roles are changing, escalation paths may be unclear. Managing security impact includes ensuring that incident contacts are updated, that logging and monitoring cover newly integrated systems, and that response responsibilities are clear across organizational boundaries. Beginners sometimes imagine incident response as a separate plan, but during change it must be practiced and simplified because complexity increases. A mature program ensures that critical systems are monitored, that privileged access is controlled, and that teams know who to call when something looks wrong. This is also where governance becomes essential, because emergency decisions may be needed, and the organization must know who can authorize disruptive actions. Clear authority boundaries reduce delay during crises. During change, response speed can be the difference between a contained issue and a major incident. Finally, managing security impact requires continuous communication because rumors and uncertainty cause risky behavior. Teams need to know what is changing, what stays the same, and what security expectations apply during transition. They also need to know how to request access properly, how to share information safely, and how to report suspicious activity. Communication should be calm and practical, not fear-based, because stress is already high during organizational change. It should also be role-based, because different groups need different information. Executives need to understand risk posture and priorities, while teams need operational guidance. Beginners sometimes think communication is soft, but during change it is a hard control because it influences behavior. When communication is absent, people invent their own methods, and that leads to uncontrolled access, insecure data sharing, and missed reporting. Security leaders maintain trust by communicating clearly and by being consistent about enforcement and exceptions. Trust reduces workarounds and increases cooperation, which is crucial when the organization is already under pressure. In conclusion, managing the security impact of mergers, acquisitions, outsourcing, and reorgs is about protecting control and accountability while the organization is undergoing high complexity, high uncertainty change. These events increase risk by expanding systems, data flows, identities, and dependencies while also creating confusion about ownership and process. Effective management involves early discovery of critical assets and obligations, disciplined control of integration boundaries, careful governance of shared responsibility with providers, and rapid updating of roles and access during reorganizations. Data handling, classification alignment, and controlled data movement prevent exposure and compliance surprises, while incident response readiness and monitoring coverage reduce the chance that change-driven issues become major incidents. Practical, consistent communication supports secure behavior and reduces workarounds during stressful transitions. When security is built into change management rather than added afterward, the organization can pursue growth, efficiency, and restructuring goals while preserving trust, resilience, and accountability, even as its internal map is being redrawn.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.